Good evening, everyone. I'd just like to start off with our land acknowledgement and acknowledge we're on the ancestral, traditional, and unceded territories of the Mount Musqueam First Nations. And I'd like to call the people's meeting to order. And we're on time. Excellent. Introduction of late items. I trust there's no late items, Mr. Roy.
No, your worship.
Thank you, sir. Any late items from council? Seeing none, moving on. Approval of agenda, that the agenda be adopted as presented, moved by Councillor Pringle, second by Councillor Pickard. Any discussion? All in favor? Carried unanimously. Good. Unfinished business, none. Delegations, none. And administrative reports. And the first item on the administrative reports is 2025 draft 5-year financial plan projects. Can I get moved by Councillor Waymire? Second by Councillor Fawson. Awesome. And we should have some discussion. I'm sure there's going to be some discussion. Who would like to start off? Anybody? Councillor Fawson.
Thank you, through the chair. I just wanted to say thank you for this report. It was well drafted and full of information and kind of eye-opening. I just had a few questions just based on a few of the line items that maybe I can have clarity on. Seeing that this is just a draft and we have to pass it officially, correct?
It's for we're receiving it. for
Yeah, so we're
information as a
receiving
draft.
it. So
we can make changes.
So I guess just a few questions that I had, and I'll see if I can pull up my little notes here. Okay,
Questions?
question on the, I didn't put the line numbers down. Okay, what is the office equipment that is being proposed to being replaced?
Are we addressing that to the
Through the chair to the administrator, please.
Mr. Roy, would you care to respond to that, sir?
We're looking at replacing a photocopier. The one down at the arena is now on at end of life, and parts are no longer available. So we'll be looking at getting another one, and depending on whichever one is the cheaper operations, it'll come into town hall, and the more expensive one will go down there, since the volume of printing is higher at this location, just to keep our costs down. So.
Okay, thank you.
Subsequent questions?
Just so council is aware, we do have our director of operations online too.
Terrific.
Okay, thank you. I do have just a couple subsequent questions, if I can continue, sir. Through the chair, what is the, I don't want to assume, but my question is, what is the Public Works vehicle replacements to the administrator, please?
Did you want to address that to Director of Operations Doxey or to the administrator? Who are you addressing?
To whoever can answer my question, sir.
Who would you like to have answer that question, Mr. Roy?
Mr. Doxey, you want to take that one?
So sure. Are you referring to, may I just for clarification before we get going, are you referring to 31-001 Public Works vehicle replacement and the 5 entries that they have there for those 5 years? Councillor Fawson, because I'm quite interested in understanding what those numbers represent over those 5 years. I have those listed as on my list. Is that your list also,
yes,
sir?
Your Honor, 31-001 is my question. Yes.
Thank you for joining us this evening. Would you here to answer that, Director Doxey?
I can certainly help if I may, through your worship. So the vehicle replacement program is, there's a couple of pickup trucks. One right now is not drivable. The other item is, I'm actually unfortunately not sure off the top of my head without the detail. I'm sorry for the remaining years. Other than they're basically just vehicle renewals coming up and going through the process. And I know like 2025 is 2 pickup trucks, one of which doesn't run. But I'm not sure if the CAO may have more detail available on the subsequent years and the exact details.
Those other years would be similar. There's a list of equipment that came up over the next 5 years. Of course, these numbers will be updated once we complete the asset management plan. But this was what had been identified previously for equipment coming up to end of life and looking at replacement over the next 5 years.
Terrific. Thank you very much, Minister Roy. Director of Operations, Docs, is it possible for you to research that and get back to the council to answer that question? Because both myself and Councillor Fosson would be interested in what these numbers represent over the 5 years. Considering that, I assume this purchases are coming out of general capital reserve, and that is one of the reserves that's under a lot of pressure. I don't know if Councillor Fosson has finished this. Okay, Councillor Waymer, I'll get to you next. Councillor Fosson, do you have any other questions that you
Yes,
wanted
thank
to address
you,
to
Your
the
Honor.
director?
I just have, it looks like I have 2 more questions, Your Honor.
Yes, sir.
Question about 32-001 pedestrian bike counter. Can I have an explanation as to what that is, please, from the
Do you remember the
administrator?
report that we had was given to us by the Economic Development Officer?
Right, okay,
There
so
was a grant
my,
application
I guess,
under
okay,
the active
so
transportation grant. I assume that's what that is referencing.
I think that is it a physical counter? I guess that's my question. Is it a piece of equipment?
That's what I understand. You can direct it to one of the staff if you wish, but I think that's exactly what it is.
Okay, well, that answers my question.
Okay.
Thank you. The last question I have is, again, I just need clarification on what
sir.
is our zero net project?
That would be a
And that
grant
is-
application. I assume it has something to do with carbon reduction, and I'll pass it on to Administrator Roy because I'm not right up to speed on it. Mr.
Actually,
Roy,
I'll
would you care
pass
to
that
respond
to Director Doxy.
Director Doxy, would you care
If
to
I may
respond
again
to that one,
through-
sir?
Yeah, if I may again, through your worship, that's a program by which we engage with a consultant to look at our facilities, particularly arena, pool, those intensive energy use facilities, but also our lift stations. And we look for opportunities to apply for greenhouse gas energy reduction. So there's typically a very small portion that's due up front in the first year with a little bit of engineering consultation work. And then subsequent years, there would be some capital outlay, but largely they're funded through grants if they're successful. So.
Just for clarification, Director of Operations, Doxy, you're saying that the 120,000 that's listed in this budget, is that already a grant that we received and that we're actioning that grant? Or are we taking money out of one of our reserve accounts to pay for this?
If I may, through your worship, there should be an in and an out. There should be a corresponding revenue for the actual grant work along with the expense that goes with that. The outlay that we would need ahead of time is typically in the neighborhood of around $20,000 for cash out of hand for the first year, and then depending on the success of the grants, we would need to make up if the project is a go for year 2, then we would need to look at like what the grant provides and either take the grant or reject the grant or top up the grant with capital funding.
I think I understand that. Thank you, sir. We front it and then we use that as a report to apply for grants that allow us to receive money to put towards things that will reduce our carbon footprint. Is that kind of a
You've got the
kind of
gist,
a-
yes.
basic summary? Okay, thank you, sir. Councillor Fosson, are you finished?
Thank you through the chair. Just one last question for clarification, maybe
Yes, sir.
to the to our to either the to either
CAO?
of our CAO.
Okay.
Just a basic question: who uses the wharf crane?
I asked the administrator the same thing and he had a good answer. Mr. Roy.
That was, Grieg has been using it historically. The Sea Cucumber people utilize it. At this time, our intention right now is to push it off until there's some greater need to justify the expenditure of that money. Right now it is in there. It probably could come out once the asset management plan is finalized too. But at this time, administration is not in any rush to move that one forward due to nobody really needing it at this time. So I think it might have been showing up for this year and it's already been pushed off. Just for councils on the screen right now, you'll see the breakout of the public works for 5 years.
Okay, cool. That's what we're looking for. Okay, the vehicle maintenance general couple. 65 and 65 and Is it possible to, Administrator, is it possible to print that off and provide that to us?
Just bear in mind though, the
Or
years
email it to me,
2 through
whatever.
5 will be refined again when we do the asset management.
Okay,
So
I understand it's a work in progress,
yeah.
but for me to try and just memorize it at this point, I prefer not to do that. I just like to be able to go back and look at it. Thank you, sir. I suppose you could just email that to us. Perfect, thank you. Does that conclude your questions?
Thank you through the chair. Yes.
Thank you, Councillor Foston, Councillor Waymire.
Nothing particularly in addition. It was definitely going to be a lot related to this and the fact that we do have an asset management plan coming. So, I mean, I don't want to throw any extra work onto our staffs.
You're doing.
So, I mean, I'm quite happy with just seeing this report and leaving it there and seeing what happens in budgets, years. I mean, well, the asset management plan and future budget years, we can address that.
Thank you, sir. Anyone else care to ask any questions? Oh, okay. Well, so if no one else has any other questions for the administrator or the director of operations, I'll jump in. I have a number of questions and a number of comments. One, first of all, I'm very appreciative of all the work that our staff does in preparing these reports for us. They're very helpful, helping me understand what status is of the village and what we need to be looking at the next little while. I look at the one thing that really jumped out on me was looking at our reserves. And our reserves are basically funds that we put money into that we allocate to functions going forth in the future. And the administrator has brought it to our attention when you look at his report here on reserves. You see the capital, if you look at the capital works reserve, you can see that in not too many years, I think it's 2, 4, 5, 6, 7, is it 2007 that we no longer have any funds in that reserve and that we're in a deficit position there. And we're looking at different ways of having to finance it, either borrowing money or drawing down from our surpluses or, raising taxes or so and there's lots of things going on. And same thing with our sewer capital reserve. If you look like that one, you can see that 2004, 2005, where we have money in the bank, and then starting in 2006, there's no money in that in that particular account anymore to finance the things that are presumably on this list that we're looking at. One that we've been asking questions about. So I think it behooves us to take a really close look at what's in there. And so I've got a lot of questions for the administrator and the director of operations in terms of what is actually in that list. And I know that it could get modified going forward because we're still looking at the asset management plan. But I think that there might be some things that we could take a look at and make a determination on whether that's something that can be deferred to another time, something that we don't even want at all, something that we're not going to go forward with unless there's a grant that supports it, or some other options. Can I start with the first one? It's page 6 of his report, and we've got a breakdown of all of them. And it says that we're looking at the wharf and the dock and doing the dredging. I think the dredging is critical. We approved it this year, something we didn't get to. It's a work in progress. We're just getting the permit. We're going to work with the First Nations on that, but we don't dredge down there, then we can't really operate our dock and our wharf down there. So that makes sense, and to make it very difficult for Western to do their business down there, or the folks at Mouchum First Nations, or boats trying to get up and down the river to fish. So that to me is no problems whatsoever. And my understanding of that is that we had some money that was given to us by the federal government. I'm sure we don't have a lot left in that account anymore, but a lot of that money that we have left is going to go towards paying this off, as well as what'll come out of our wharf and dock reserve fund. So I have no problem with that one. The $100,000 for the upgrade on this building. This is an old building. You can see that we already invested some money on the entrance to the building. We've got new doors in there. I'm really pleased and happy with those. And don't have a problem investing in this building too, because it's an older building. Like I said, it needs some work on the outside in order to update it. The administrator he's got some projects that he wants to get done. When I look at the server replacement, I don't have any problem with that. I don't have any problem with the office equipment, the photocopier. When I get down to 29-272 PSB fire equipment, fire bay exhaust system. When we first brought this up, we were concerned as a safety item. We priced it out. It was about $33,000. It jumped. The administrator said, no, that's something we should reflect on and review, because that number is no longer 32,000, it's 120,000. And when I look at it, it's some exhaust system for the bay, because they have diesel vehicles in there. In my, and that was I think presented to us by our last fire chief. But since then, I've been reviewing it, looking at it, and talking about the operational procedure. Operational procedures, if they get a call, they take their engines outside and they idle them outside. They don't idle them in the bay. If they do have the, if they do need to work on a vehicle inside, we could always get something like one of those exhaust hoses that you put on the back of the exhaust and run it outside, and you could still exhaust out there. So, I'm not supportive of this at this point, because there's a price. And the other thing is that if it was an actual order from WorkSafe, because they were concerned that we were not in compliance, then I would probably look at it a little differently. But at this point, I don't support that item. And this is one that I'd be proposing that we remove from this budget. In terms of the public works vehicle replacement, I'm going to trust that I can see it, what we've got down there. And I'm going to trust the mechanic and the director of operations that they have a program that changes these vehicles out at a certain mileage or certain years or whatever, in terms of the lifespan on these equipment. And so I would think that these are things that we're going to have to buy, but it sure hits us hard on that general capital reserve. You can see it gets exhausted pretty quick. So if there's any way that, you could look at those, and I don't know how the program exactly works, like how many 1,000 kilometers we see on a piece of equipment, or how many hours on a piece of equipment before, or a vehicle before we replace it. But if there's any way of extending that so that we're not looking at these numbers in 5 consecutive years, that'd be great. So at that point, I'm okay. I'm still, I think the jury's still out on that one for me. I'm not quite sure. I'd like to get some more information on it, because I don't know if I want to support all these vehicles exactly in the timeline. But I'm sure I can be convinced if there's a program there that the director of operations has. The wharf crane, don't have any problem with that. That's just doing business down there. The garbage truck, we already approved that. That's just a carryover from 2024. And we had 400,000 in there for that. So we've got a truck that's a lot cheaper, and we're not going with the $200,000 worth of garbage cans that go with it. So I'm happy with that. Nimkish Park, I think that Councillor Waymire was inquiring about that the other day, and I think we talked about that. But that's for the track, I believe. Is that what we're looking at? What's wrong?
No,
improvement upgrade?
my understanding of the Nimkish Park improvement upgrade is basically getting a report on kind of what the vision of Nimkish Park is for Gold River, and then in 2026 is kind of more actionable items, whether it's be repaving the tennis courts or the walkway or whatever it might be. So I mean, I still would really like to see that report, which I think comes largely from that $15,000. And I mean, what can we do to make Nimkish Park as livable for Gold River as possible, whether that's, sidewalks or benches or outdoor exercise equipment. Something I definitely want to keep in our budget.
Terrific. Thank you, Councilor Waymire. I'm supportive of that also. I'm just not sure if that's what this money represents, because historically, I know there was an initiative to study the walkway and then to replace it. Mr. Roy, what does this 15,000 in 2024 and the 40,000 in 2025 represent, sir?
It is for a report on the study, and drilling down, as your council may recall, we do have a Parks and Recs master plan.
Yes, sir.
That has a very high level view of all our parks and recreation facilities. The goal objective of this would be to now take that from a very high level down to a more detailed level of what the area would be like and what the plan would be moving forward. So that's what the funding would be for.
That would be
I
the
envision
funding.
that would include bringing it, doing a public consultation to get some more input from people at that stage. So it's just a more detailed, what is the park going to be? We had a lot of high level stuff.
Okay.
Now we want to drill down and say, this is what it's going to look like and be able to move forward from there.
Perfect. That just reflects what Councillor Waymire interpreted as. And the second part, the $40,000, does that have any reference or relevance to anything, or is that just a number thrown in there?
That's a number put in at this time. If there's something that comes out of that, that can be actionable. So, and again, next year we'll relook at whatever will be under 2026. So
And with that money, is that money that could come out of the Growing Communities Fund that we have?
yes.
That, because there's, what are we, still up over $900,000 in
Parks is
that?
probably one of the few items that were earmarked out of the growing community funds that can be used. And that's what we'd be using to fund the 15,000 too.
Thank you, sir. So this is a number that's very fluid, and then based on what we get from the detailed report, that could go higher or lower, probably higher, I would think. Okay, thank you, sir. Like, I have a problem investing in our parks. I'm with Councillor Waymire. I'd like to see something done with Nimkish. That's the center of our community. Exercise equipment, no problem there. I know it has to be replaced. Net zero project, they've explained to me already, so I understand that. Pool capital upgrades, and you got 40,000 there. Director of Operations, Doxy, does that represent anything specific, or is that just a number that you've thrown in there to, to catch up whatever might need to be done over 2024?
There's some small items in there, but the big one is a boiler replacement, I believe. So,
Okay,
I'm sorry. There's some SCADA work that one is part of. Misspoke. That is for tying in some of the pool controls into a SCADA computer system. So right now, the pool, the hot tubs, all the boilers, the pumps, they're all driven by one old PC running on Windows 7.
all right.
And it's
I heard
no longer
that.
supported.
I was down there. I thought, wow, this is different from when I was down there.
Yeah.
Okay, sir, I understand that. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Moving on then to the sewer capital fund. You know what you have a Mufflet Bridge sewer line replacement. I assume that you're referring, this is the sewer and water line that are running underneath the bridges down by the high school, the two bridges down there?
That's right.
So that's a water and sewer line down there. That's correct?
Yes.
Okay, and you're proposing, I guess, a study or detailed study in the 1 year, and then the replacement cost of 345,000 to replace the line going across the bridge. Is that correct?
That's right.
Okay, can I ask you a question? Have you had conversations with Modi to determine when they're planning on demolishing that bridge or those bridges down there and replacing them? Because I understood that that was something that was within their next 5-year plan.
Nothing recent, but I believe either very early on when I started, or I may have gotten this conversation from a consulting engineer, but the word from them back then was that the bridge replacement was some many years out in the future. And so we basically were electing to look at it like we need to get on and with our utility renewal, and when the bridge replacement happens, it'll either have to get braced as need be for that time, but they weren't going to coincide.
Your worship, I did have sorry,
Commissioner Roy?
I did have a conversation with Modi last year, I think it was, or possibly the year before.
Yes, sir.
They said that it's not in their 10-year plan at that time, and that the village should not be waiting on them to proceed with any work that we need to do. If we replace the lines, they will work that into the project at that time, but there is nothing on the current event horizon for them to replace that bridge.
So they don't anticipate that they're going to be replacing that bridge within the next 10 years. Okay, and if they do replace that bridge, then would they pay then for the reinstatement of the two lines that we're putting in here, the water and sewer? Is there any arrangements for that, or would we be demolishing those lines at that time when the bridge went down and then putting those lines back in again? If they gave us permission to run the lines underneath the bridge. Do we have any discussions? Have we have any preliminary discussions with Modi in regards to that question, Administrator Warrior or Director of Operations, Doxy?
When I talked to them, they said they would accommodate the lines that we had and maintain what was there.
So if they demolished the bridge and rebuilt the bridge, they would replace those lines at no cost.
Or
to the
they would
village?
establish a way to maintain the service that's there while they replace the bridge. Yes.
Okay, thank you, sir. Appreciate looking into that. And moving on, flow meters, I don't have a problem with flow meters. And then the sanitary sewer renewal, I&I program. I think last year we had 60,000 in the budget for the I&I program. I believe at that point you were doing cammering and in situ form instead of, I assume this is open trench that you're talking about for 360,000. So, and Mr. Wright, why are we looking at 360,000 open trench instead of just continuing on with what we've done historically, which is camera the lines and do point repairs in situ form? Is there a reason why this in here? Because the sewer, look at our sewer reserves and they tank pretty quick here. Like we
So-
got this year, next year, and then we're done. There's no money in that. So why are we proposing to do this at that?
Your worship,
cost?
this is actually would be funded out of the gas tax, so it wouldn't come out of reserves. With the renewal of the gas tax program, we were required to identify the use of the current funds we have in the account.
Yes.
After talking with our Director of Operations, established that this would be a logical use for those funds. So that's where that came from. So is to utilize the gas tax funding that we already have in our account to also allow us to continue receiving funds in under the new agreement. Director of Operations Doxy, do you have anything you can add to that?
Sure, you said it fairly well. It doesn't preclude. It's not intended to be an if or but in terms of open trench replacement or trench or pipelining. It very well could involve pipelining as a preferred mode of replacement. It's intended to include the like I&I investigations, like smoke testing, camera work, and then like ultimately utility line replacement. Two main issues or things that we're trying to solve there. One is utility failure and sewer backups. And the second one is by mention of the term I&I, infiltration and inflow. And that costs us both risk of backup, but it also costs us in our sewage treatment capacity as it's tying up resources down there and energy and expenses as well. So that's aimed at basically a renewal and effectively, like I say, like removing some of that I&I, and it could be trenchless, but it also could be open trench excavation. It can also be steered, I guess I should mention as well, by the outcomes of the asset management program, as levels of service will certainly be something that'll be up for conversation. Like the community's tolerance for risk and will definitely have an impact on ultimate future budgets.
Okay, with that said, why are we depleting our sewer capital reserve so quickly if this is not coming, this 360,000 is coming out of our
Your
gas
worship,
tax
it's not
or
depleting
community works
reserves.
funds rather than the sewer reserve fund?
This is not depleting reserves, your worship, that is funded at a gas tax, 100% at a gas tax of 360.
Okay, what's drawing down that reserve so that it's depleted in 2006?
Some of the other items would be drawing it down.
What are those items? Is that just the replacing that sewer line going across the bridge and?
Yes, that's probably the big one that's starting to hit it in that year.
Okay, how much money is in that sewer? Could you share that with me? How much money do we have left in that reserve?
A few $100,000, your worship.
Just a few $100,000?
If you look at page 4, the graph of the reserves, you'll see it's under the 500,000 mark.
Okay, so it's about 4. Okay, super.
The blue is 2024 estimated levels based on 2023 ending.
Okay, thank you for that explanation. And the McQuina lift station, force main, I may be mistaken this, but it looks like it's down twice. I may be wrong, but when I look at, it says McQuina lift station, and you have 35,000 in 2005. I assume that's going to be the engineering work, and then 540,000. I assume that's a replacement 2027. But I also see it again on the budget. McQuina lift station, force main and general replacement. And I see 65,000 in 2026 and 450,000 2027. Can you explain to me what that represents? Because I'm not following it. Director of Operations, Doxy, do you have an answer to that? Is that just a typo here, or is it, or something going on that I don't understand?
I need to drill into that, I think offline. It could be a double entry. It looks like it would be a situation of the budget getting reviewed and more being put on the front end, as opposed to the back end, like more on the engineering side. But I need to drill into the details of that. It does look like a double entry.
Thank you, sir. I'll let you guys review that and then you can get back to us. And the Mushlet Bridge water line, I think you've explained that already with the previous discussion we had about the sewer line. That we don't see that bridge being replaced in the next 10 years. We're not confident that the sewer line and the water line running under that bridge is structurally sound enough to, last longer than 10 years. And that if we don't replace it, there's a good chance that we're gonna lose them or break, and then we won't be able to service anything beyond that until it gets repaired. So yeah, I think I understand that one right there. And that's about it for me. I think that exhausts it for me. So there are a few things that I think that I'd like to see come back when we have our next meeting. Thank you for your answers that help clarify the understanding for me. Councilor Waymire.
Yeah, just going back to 23,272, the fire equipment, fire bay exhaust. I'm not against deferring this item. I don't want to see it completely disappear though. I wouldn't mind seeing it, say, push back to 2028. And at that point, I mean, it's further down the road. It's something still on our radar, but something we can, defer for 2 more years. And, when, future budgets come up, it's something council can look at. But I think it's important enough not to completely eliminate from our budget, or at least 5-year budget.
Thank you, Councilor Waymire. Minister Roy, just procedurally, if we want to make any changes to this, what's the mechanism that we go about by changing? Are we doing motions on each item then? And is that how we do that?
Pretty much, it is a committee of the whole, so it's an informal motion. It doesn't need a seconding or anything, but a general consensus of council.
Okay, so if we want to make any adjustments if we want to go forward then with any of these adjustments, we just need to make a motion. So I'm only hearing, I think the only thing that we've said that we wanted to move or take out after our discussion was the $120,000 for everything else I think everything else is still in there, isn't it? Except for that, maybe the McQuina lift station thing. We're not sure whether that could be just a duplicate. So I don't even care if it stays in there for next year, just because I will be dealing with it again. It's not something we're buying in 2024. So it doesn't really matter to me, if anywhere in this 5-year, if we don't want to take it out, I don't have any problem. We don't take it out. You can just leave it exactly where it is right now. If you want to see it in there, I don't have any problem with that. But if we get to discussion next year when we're going to finance or not finance, that's where we can have that debate, whether we support it or don't support it. If you guys want to go there, I'm pretty good with that. It's not like it's not something that's even, our consideration 2025, it's on 2026. So are you good with that, Councilor Mayor? Or do you want to see it move back a couple of years?
At this point, I wouldn't mind seeing it move back a couple of years. I have a feeling we'll be, or perhaps not, but you've raised some very good points about running the trucks outside.
Yes, sir.
And all the other things we can do to mitigate this risk. So I would not mind seeing it pushed back to 2028 so that it is off of our 4 years and it becomes a 2nd-year item for the future.
Do you push to put that in motion, sir?
That's the motion.
That's our motion. Okay, Councillor Waymar moves it, second by Councillor Fosson. Any other discussion? All in favor? Done in 2008. Thank you. Anybody else want to make any more motions on what we see here and after our discussion that we had with the administrator and director of operations? No. Other than I might want to come back and revisit that list with the vehicle replacement and then revisit the question about Quina lift. Councillor Fosson.
Thank you through the chair. I too agree with you. I'd like to have the Public Works vehicle replacement in front of us before we look at 31-001.
Yeah.
I think that would give us a more clearer idea of where we can push things back cost wise.
That's that's clear to me, but I think that the administrator, if you just emailed it to us and we can reference it and we can make a determination on the next meeting. Would that be good enough for you, Councillor Fosson?
Yes, Your Honor. And
Thank you,
the
sir.
only other thing I'd like to bring up that I might like to see is I'm noticing our 62005 digital messaging sign replacement. Myself, I'd like to see that pushed to 2028 myself, just because it looks like our sign is quite new, it's still functioning well, and I know we'll be dealing with it within our budget, but I would like to see it pushed back to 2028 as well.
Any comments by staff before Councillor Fosson wants to move that as a motion? Any problems with any problem with that, Director of Operations, Oxy, Mr. Roy? Anything that you wanted might influence the decision here? Not hearing anything from the gentleman. Did you want to move that as a motion then? Could you move that as a
Yes,
motion?
please,
Can
Your
you
Honor.
repeat it for me?
I would like to see the
What was the number again on that?
62-005 digital messaging sign replacement removed from 2026 and placed in the 2028 column.
Do I have a seconder? Anybody wants to second it? Councillor Pringle, any more discussion? Councillor Waymar.
Yeah, it's my understanding that that thing is fairly archaic and it's hard to get any upgrades for the sign itself. It's a small enough budget item that we can look at it again in 2026 when time comes, and it's also not the biggest expense either. So I would love to keep it in 2026 because I think it's something that is a item that probably needs to be actioned sooner than later. Yeah.
Any other discussion? I have a motion on the floor.
Thank you
Oh.
to the,
Sir, Councillor
Chair.
Fosson, so
Thank
my
you,
apologies. I
Councillor
was
Waymar, for
engrossed in
your,
something else.
I didn't have my hand up quick enough, I guess.
Go ahead.
Thank you, Councillor Waymar, for that information, your input there. I guess my concern is we're looking at this, we're looking at it as a 5-year project summary. This will influence our budget, and I'm pretty sure we want to be looking at every cost-saving item that we can. So that's why I brought it up. So thank you very much.
Okay, any further? Oh. Councillor Pickard.
Thank you through the chair. Thanks, Councillor Waymire and Councillor Fosson for your thoughts. And I think we can, I think it seems fair to just keep it for 2026, as Councillor Waymire said. It's pretty important for the village. There's not many means of communication, and it is one way to get village events and activities at the rec centers out to the public. And so if it's on here, maybe some further recommendation from staff or director of operations, or just kind of, knowing why it's there would be better, and looking at it next year to make sure it's running smoothly before it doesn't work.
Just for clarification, for my understanding, Mr. Roy, is this 20,000 being funded out of our Community Works Fund or Growing Communities Fund, one of our grant funds? Or is this coming out of, is this a taxable item?
This is coming out of reserves, Your Worship.
Sorry, could it come in nowhere, sir?
Out of reserves that does not meet the requirements of the Growing Communities Fund.
Okay. Got a motion on the table. Any other comments? Councillor Pickard.
Thanks through the chair. And this is for Administrator Roy. Maybe could this come out of maybe that COVID fund with the funds remaining that did the tech in the room here?
That's a possibility. I didn't give to go into too much consideration of the future years for how we fund things,
Mhm.
but that could be a possibility, yes.
Councilor Wimmer.
Yeah, just by merit of it being in 2026 does not mean we're not going to readdress it this time next year when we do budget. So I think we'll have, I mean, ideally more information about how pertinent it is to replace it. But if we push it back to 2028, then it's kind of a little more out of our control, and we'll be asking to replace it, once it totally goes kaput. So there's, I mean, no real danger of keeping it in 2026, where it is.
Councilor Fawcett. Councilor Pringle.
To the chair. So where are we with this? I'm a little confused.
Now, at this point, there's a motion on the table from
Sorry.
Councilor
Can I
Fawcett to move it back.
Okay, I just
Um,
wanted to finish. Sorry.
Go ahead.
Okay, so I was a little confused. So if we we're just going to make a recommendation at this moment to see if it needs replacing ASAP? Is that what we're doing? Did I hear that right? I just need that clarified thing.
If I can interpret Councilor Fawcett's motion, he wants to move this item from the 2026 funding year to 2028. And the discussion is on whether or not it stays in 2026 or 2028. If we vote on the motion and then it'll go to 2028. If it carries, if it doesn't carry, it stays in 2026 unless somebody else wants to make a motion to do something else. That's my understanding. Are we in the right track with that one, Mr. Councilor Fawcett, with Councilor Pickert's inquiry about funding? If that's a grant funding rather than coming out of taxes, does that change your perspective on things, sir?
Yes, through the
Councilor
chair,
Falcon.
if we can find another revenue stream to replace it, then I would prefer it to stay in the 2026
Just for
proposed.
clarification, if it's council's wish, Mr. Roy, and there is 20,000 left in that COVID fund, is there actually 20,000 left in that fund?
There's more than 20,000 probably left in that fund at this time, so
Thank you.
Uh,
sir.
I'll
So
adjust this so that it's actually funded from grants for 2026.
do you care to
Through
withdraw
the
your
chair, I
motion,
care to withdraw
Councillor?
my motion.
Who seconded it? Do you care to withdraw it? Done. Okay, moving on. I think we're still on the original motion and we're in discussion. Is there any more discussion you guys want to have, or do you want to move on? I think that was a pretty wholesome discussion. I really thank the Director of Operations Doxy and the Administrator Roy for the clarifications on things. It really helps me understand what these budgets actually translate into, because often they're just numbers on a page to me. But when I actually hear the discussion and clarification explanation from staff, it's very helpful. Yeah, and it takes a lot of work to put this together, and again, I appreciate all the work that you folks do on behalf of ourselves and the taxpayers to help us make sure that we make the best decisions financially for our community. Any other discussion? Councillor Pickard?
Good point. Thank you. And I appreciate your sentiments, Mayor, a lot too, that thanks to staff, thanks to Director Doxy for putting this all together. It's kind of a tricky puzzle with the dwindling reserves and aging infrastructure at the same time. So really appreciate you mapping it out so well for all of us and everyone's discussion on what we need and what's important and where we need to spend our money. And just one quick point, along with the grant stuff, maybe for the sign, and it's coming up in 2027, so we have a bit of time, but the arena dehumidifier, there's sometimes some grants out for not so much operating costs for recreational facilities, but upgrades or new equipment. So maybe we could be proactive and look for some funding there through grants if you need.
I would echo your sentiments, Councillor Pickard. Even though we may choose to adopt this, I think that the directions to staff now and always is that, can you take our dollars and make them go farther? And these gentlemen are doing great work with that, because if we can get an infrastructure grant, let's say to replace the McQuina lift station, and we're only paying 33 cents on instead of the full dollar, then our money goes a lot farther. So I'm assuming that these gentlemen are already on that and they're looking at what the grants, infrastructure grants that may be available to help finance these projects. Because that's historically how Gold River has made their dollar go farther and been able to make the taxpayers dollar get more value for the community. So I'm assuming these gentlemen are in the same track. They'll be looking at all grants that may be available to finance something like replacement of the McQuina lift station, the force main, the generator that's down there. So yeah, absolutely critical, important that we get maximum value. Did you care to comment on that, Director of Operations, Doxy? I thought.
No, I don't have too much to add. It is, like I say, something that we keep an eye on is any of the green, like the infrastructure grants, green municipal infrastructure. It's yeah. If and when there's grants, it's helpful to have the approved budgets and know when things are coming in the timelines and like you see how you like, you know, consulting work is year one and the actual project year two. That also helps to have projects sitting on the shelf and ready to go for grants. So
Thank you, sir. Appreciate you looking at looking for the best way to get the maximum value out of Gold River taxpayers' money. Thank you, sir. Any other discussion you want to have on this item, or just want to call for question? Everybody's exhausted it? Okay. I think I sucked up a lot of air on that one. Call for the question. All in favor, receipt carried unanimously. Great. Let's move on to the next item then. And we had sent the administrator off after last meeting to do some research for us, and he's brought back a report. And it's going to be under the 2025 draft 5-year financial plan operation. And just want to get somebody to move that council receive it for information. And moved by Councillor Fossin, seconded by Councillor Waymeyer. And this one will be interesting because it's a continuation of the conversation we had during our last committee of the whole. Yeah. I know. I'm watching you melt. I don't even know if I can go there. But anyways, thank you. There you go. Terrific. So did anybody want to lead off on this one? Councilor Waymeyer.
First and foremost, thank you for the report. It's very useful information for us. It's the direction I would personally like to go, at least for this first 1 year of doing the 17.8 across those two classes and keeping it at 8.94 residential. It's $47,000 extra that we would not have had. Of course, that is coming because we are losing out on $125,000 in lost operating revenues. So it doesn't make up everything, but it's a very good start. And it, is as little of an impact on residents as we can, ideally do, but we're looking at some, hard choices here. We've got a report from our CAO, CFO, see everything. And he's basically telling us that there's not a ton of extra money that we can be shaving from our budget to make up $125,000 short of reducing services. And by reducing services, we're really reducing jobs is what we'd be doing. And I really like the livability of our community. I really like the services we do have and the amount we do provide. And what I really don't want to see is saving money by reducing staffing costs, because we've got quite the skeleton crew as it is. And they're doing great work. And the last thing I really want to do is, I mean, try and start shaving money through those areas. So I think this is we're looking everywhere where we can save money, where we can gain money. And I think looking at business and light industry for a 1 year 17.8% is a very good start. And perhaps even looking at, say, 2027, 2029, where our increase in taxes are supposed to drop to 6%, perhaps increasing 2027 to 8.9, because we can't find all the money all from one location. But I mean, as much as we can, make up that $125,000, and with the $47,000 this year, and still being $82,000 short of what we normally would have been receiving as revenue. I think this is a very good first step for us to take.
Thank you, Councillor Raymar. Councillor Pringle.
To the chair, we had a very wholesome discussion, and we had lots of people come to the meeting last time we were trying to raise taxes for the industries. And I was hoping we would have had more people here tonight.
Wait until you get to final reading. You'll have a lot of people here.
We did invite businesses to come to our meetings so they could help us and work with us. And I'm just wondering if we can have some sort of opportunity for that besides these meetings. I'm not quite sure how that would work.
They're welcome to come to any of our committee of the whole meetings. We're doing our budget discussions. Can I just respond? Can Administrator Roy respond to that too?
Yep.
Just remind council, November 13th is the open house when people can come in and talk about anything on the budget or in regards to budget. That would include the business community.
Okay, awesome. Thank you. And I
Can I
just
answer your question, Councillor Pringle?
part of it.
Okay, carry on.
I do not wish to have any reduction in staff. It's always the staff, our members who work in our town who get the axe first. I want to think outside of the box. And I think we can do that. And we do have some reserves, and we do have, taxing, but I want to hear it all first before I make some sort of big decision. But I will not be voting or making a decision for people to lose jobs or hours, or we're already running on skeleton hours, or to drop our hours. I want to make that plain. Our staff have not taken money for over 10 years. They didn't take an increase in wages so our town could keep running. And I think we owe them, even though all those people are pretty well retired now, but we still owe them loyalty, and we owe them for taking their courses, living in our town, getting better, and having their kids in our schools to make sure that they have jobs. That's all I'd like to say.
Thank you, Councillor Pringle. Councillor Fawson.
Thank you through the chair. Thank you to Councillor Waymire and Councillor Pringle. I too do not like the idea of trying to sacrifice the wages that our staff receive. I have a different viewpoint of looking at this in my own business. When we take a loss, we take a loss, and we don't try to hike up the cost to all the other customers. So when I look at this, I look at it as a loss. There's no guarantee it was going to happen next year. No guarantee it was going to happen the year after. It's a part of doing business. So, but what I don't like to do too is when I look at the light industry and the heavy industry business classes that we have, we're lucky to still have them in our town. They are paying more in taxes, or they will be paying more in taxes, but to see us increase it by 17.8% and possibly increase it more, I don't know of a government that decreases taxes once they're raised. I don't think we would probably be the first that would do that. I really don't see us lowering taxes. So I want us to be very careful when we look at trying to recoup just $125,000. I mean, $47,000 or $48,000, we're still not going to recoup it. We're never going to recoup it, in my viewpoint, unless we are able to attract new business or gain more tax revenue from properties that we own with the way we rent, or when we do whatever we do with buildings that we're deciding what to do with. In my viewpoint, when like I just said, if we look at raising taxes just to recoup $125,000, we're not going to do it. I mean, we're never going to get it back. We need more industry. We need more jobs in this town to provide more housing to be built in this town for more property tax. I mean, we need more taxes raised from everything. So to look at hitting small businesses, like I look at our light industrial area there, and I know all the businesses. I deliver to all the businesses, and to see them have to be hit one more time just does not sit well with me. So those are my thoughts. Thank you to the chair.
Thank you, Councillor Fossum. Councillor Pickard.
So, copy. Thank you so much for the chair, and thanks all councillors for your thoughts. I know this is a really difficult situation, and it's challenging to find where to find the money. I kind of second Councillor Fossum's thoughts, and we keep saying we've lost operating revenues of 125,000 a year, but I don't think that we should look at it that way every year from now on. There was a reason in that contract that the only detail specified was the price per kilo across the wharf. It was never a guaranteed usage annually. It was never a minimum amount of money. So for us to take that contract that was loose, and the reason no terms were made is because that very industry was supposed to be mandated to be closed in 2025. So to take that 125,000 loss and say in the next 3 years, if we charge businesses 17%, we'll almost make it up. It's already happened. Like it shouldn't be in our annual operating revenue. That it was never guaranteed, and it maybe was some mistakes of past councils or just an uncertain industry. So I don't think taking that uncertainty and what's happened there and trying to recoup the money. I mean, we already, because of our great investment acumen of our CAO, are $165,000 over the 2024 budget on our investment income after 9 months. And I think it just, it shows our direction as council and what we're supporting. In BC, we have a high degree of discretion and flexibility in setting property tax rates. Every year we can sit down and we have that flexibility, which is, gives us flexibility, but it undermines BC's overall industrial competitiveness and creates uncertainty and deters capital investment. And we're sitting here always saying we want to attract businesses. We want light industry and the mill site to encourage business and be the answer. So putting this kind of additional pressure on them and, not instilling confidence or giving them certainty in the future isn't good for our current businesses and isn't good for investors looking to infuse capital in the area. The big thing is stability. So knowing what direction our council is and that we have a stable tax rate, I think would be a lot more attractive to investors and also support our businesses that are here contributing to our tax base. The biggest hit in the whole list would be Western Forest Products, which we know just is dealing with US nearly doubling their tariffs on softwood lumber. So this would be another locally enforced hit to their industry. So, 8.9% that we agreed on, yes, we should have flexibility to go with what's happening, but CPI is supposed to come in this year at 3.9%. So that covers the additional costs that we have and to provide the same services we have. And I think the 8.9 increase based on no change in their assessment is already going to be a lot for a lot of businesses. So I wouldn't support putting extra pressure on them. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Pickard. Any other comments? Councillor Wimmer.
I suppose my biggest question here is what is the alternative to raising taxes? We're looking at $125,000 loss each year. And that is important money for us to run the services we provide, such as our pool, our skating arena. I mean, just maintaining our roads and sewer and everything else. I mean, we've got reserves that are disappearing, and $125,000. I mean, I think it's a lot, but I mean, times that by 8, that's $1 million that we've lost if we don't take some sort of actionable item. I mean, unfortunately, there's, I mean, a lot of the community says like, oh, you got to think out of the box. You got to find other ways to make money. And the reality of being in a local government is taxation's one of the only things we have available to us to raise funds, because I would love to have some sort of new fun way to make $125,000 a year, but it's not presenting itself. And then speaking of, say, CPI and investment income, I mean, our CAO, CFO is doing a great job at bringing in additional revenue with our reserves. I mean, the more we draw down those reserves, the less money we're going to be able to invest in those GICs and whatever else we are investing in. And I don't expect that next year we're going to see the same sort of returns, because the Bank of Canada is lowering the prime rate by, they just did, I think, 0.5, and it's probably going to be another 0.5. So, I mean, we're going to go from having GICs that are making, say, 5% or something when he locked in to, 3% or something. And that's going to make a big difference. That's, 3% to 5%, that's 2%. But, the difference between 3% and 5% is actually, 40%. So we could see 40% less investment income coming into our budgets here. And those super shining numbers that we've got saving us right now might not exist 1 year, 2 years, 3 years from now. So we can't just take this hit and steal from our revenue or our reserves over and over again. There's something that's got to be done. Unfortunately, the biggest tool we have at our disposal is taxes. And there's, really, where are we going to be choosing these taxes? Because not 3 years ago, it's even been that long, but feels like a lifetime. 2 years ago, we were looking at our first, 5-year plan, and it was 8.9, 8.9, 8.9, because we were in a hole, and we're trying to crawl out of this hole, and we just got punched in the gut, a year and a half into our terms here, and lost what is the equivalent of 10% tax increase across everybody for, each year. So I think at least a one-time look at 17.8 for those to light industry and business is sending the right message that we are not just sitting by and going to allow $125,000 to be left aside year over year over year. It's not everything. I don't think recovering everything is the right choice. I'm not necessarily in favor of having this 17.8 but in 2026 and 2027. I don't think that is necessarily as reasonable, but at least for this first year, we should be budgeting and directing staff to have that 17.8 across those two classifications. Because otherwise, those taxations are going to be coming out of everybody, and that's a lot of the homeowners who, as we saw last time, would be it was 18% for everybody. So let's hit
19.5.
19.5. So let's hit 17.8 for light industry and business for 1 year. we get a look at it again in future years, but that's a very good start, the $47,000 extra that we're gonna get. And then we can look at a more equitable view of what we can do to balance our budget, because $125,000, maybe that's not, we can't recover it all. But we can, take one step forward.
Thank you, Councilor Waymire. Councilor Pringle.
To the chair, I appreciate what you just said, Councilor Waymire, and I think you make a lot of good points. Just a couple of things to the chair. I was just wondering, the 125,000, like Councilor Pickard had said earlier, wasn't something that was guaranteed every year.
That's correct.
It could be some changes. The place could have closed down and then we wouldn't have got anything.
Correct.
And I don't think we should be looking at it as that we were going to get that in perpetuity. Is that the right word? Yeah.
In perpetuity, yeah.
Yeah.
That's a big word for
Yeah.
the 7-8. For the
Um,
dictionary.
So, and I feel like it's a bit of a retribution to other businesses
Yes.
that we are going to give them going to charge them 17.8% in taxes when it was one business, and we can't really penalize the other business who took that money, in quotations,
Mm.
from us, because they're also doing their own business. And it was just something that happened and now we have to deal with it. Yes, the only thing we have to do is taxes. That's what we have for our way to recoup money. But it feels very, I don't want to say revengeful, but it feels like we're not really looking at what really could be done, what something else could be done. And I realize taxes is the way we do it, but is there something else? And that's why I want to keep the conversations, keep going. And I really appreciate what everybody's saying. And I really appreciate what you're saying, because I need to hear that as well. And I just hope that we can get a lot of people here on the 13th to also hear what they think as well.
Thank you very much, Councilor Pringle. Any other discussion? Councilor Pickard?
Thank you through the chair. Thanks, Councilor Pringle and Councilor Waymire. And I do agree, it's one step forward or like small steps forward, and we're all trying to find the best way forward.
Mhm.
And taxes are a way that municipalities raise income. And, if we're always looking at the 125 loss, which was never guaranteed, so we shouldn't be, there are some baby steps forward that have been working well. Like we'll have bigger in lieu payments for the RCMP building.
Mhm.
Maybe find a leasee for the old RCMP building, which could be
Good idea, lease.
beneficial. Also the new Bayview Hotel property tax should be assessed this year and accurate. And now with the added buildings there would be even higher. So bringing in more income. And there is something that we can do. It's called the Municipal and Regional District Tax Program. You can put a tax of up to 3% on the purchase of accommodation in short-term accommodation within the village. So not the residents, not our businesses that are already paying taxes. If we do the consultation process and get the owners on board, the village, and maybe it won't be that much to start, but it grows. Like Whistler's been doing this since 1987, I think. It's an old program, and the point is to raise money for tourism, and you can use it for housing initiatives and tourism projects like the visitor center. So it will take a little bit of work to set up, and I know it's been busy to look into it, but there are some tools that municipalities have that they can use too. And I think spreading it out is a good idea, and looking at different revenue sources for taxes. Thanks.
Yes. Thank you, Councilor Pickard. Councilor Waymire.
No, there's some great points that there is a holistic approach to this. And not all of this money can come from one location. But some of it definitely should. And the tax on short-term accommodation, is very useful for sure. But I'm looking at ways that we're going to keep our pool operating when a pipeline breaks, that we're going to be able to pay for these sorts of things. And that money can only be spent on tourism and tourism related activities. And I don't project that we're going to be anywhere near the $125,000. I mean, it's definitely money we can put into the bank for a project or a job or whatever it might be. But from where we were 2 years ago, we've got a hole that we've got to dig ourselves out of. And then finally, last year after we had our meeting, I was expecting to be totally vilified. And there was all sorts of people who came out to me afterwards and were saying like, hey, like these were business owners who would have been hurt by this, and say like, hey, I understand where you're coming from. Like, we were totally okay with it. And like, it was just kind of shocking to hear like, hey, like we wanted to like hit you guys. Are like, yeah, but we understand that you guys have this, deficit. So to hear that was, I mean, really nice, because I mean, you get a lot of the hate and it's very vocal, but those people who are out there who, there's silent support for this. And I totally hope those people show up in November to talk about this. And I think, I mean, the best way we can, get people to come out is to say, hey, it's going to be 17.8, because if we just say it's 8.9, people just going to go, oh, okay. And they'll stay home because that's what they were expecting. But if we want to get those people to really show their opinions, I think this is a very good way. If what you want to hear is community, to hear from the community and what they think, there's going to be people out there who may surprise you.
Thank you, Councilor Waymeyer. Councilor Fossin.
Thank you through the chair, and thank you, Councilor Raymar. In that sentiment, I say we should increase the taxes 50% across the board. And we will have this place packed. And I'm just saying that in jest, but it is a good, valid point. Valid point. Not saying I would ever vote for that. But part of the thing is when we look at losing money in our budget, from our budget, we have to look at ways to decrease spending. And so we're looking at budgeting. I can look at one line item here and I can go, we can recoup all of that and more if we decided not to replace some public works vehicles. You know what I mean? Like, it doesn't have to come from the pool. It doesn't have to come from the rec center. We could have decided, let's not buy a front end loader or a new backhoe. That would have saved money too. But we have to support the infrastructure that we have in our community. So it's a really tough decision, but we have to. Our administrator and the CFO has been doing a great job helping us get down to the bare minimums of what it takes to run this village. And I agree, we do have to do some tax increase. But like I said, our main job is we look at our finances like we would do at our house. Oh, shoot, our credit cards are maxed. We have no more line of credit. We pare down even more, and it's painful, but it's only painful for a short period of time. But there is also possibilities of a bright future and other things coming down the pipe that we may not know of yet. Grant funding through other streams or channels. I'm not saying we're going to have a magical industry coming through to save us, but there are some, I think, positive things in our future coming down the pipe that we might know of already. Anyway, so that's just my thing. We accept the loss, but we also could pare down in a few other ways, very creatively, I think. So thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Fossin. Councilor Waymeyer.
I don't think we can pare down any further. We just got a report here that says the way we pare down is to cut jobs. We have trucks that don't run. Every single year, we've got the public works vehicle replacement of, let's call it $130-ish thousand. That's like the $125,000 that we're losing out on. We can't just cease replacing vehicles. I mean, there are ways we can save, sure, but I think we've largely done that. We've got a report in front of us saying we can't, you know, we can't shave on, say, roads and sewer and whatnot. And the soft services that we provide are where we can shave. And unfortunately, those soft services are going to be the pool and the arena. And we're not going to save on water or electricity or whatever else it might be. What we can save on is staffing. And unfortunately, I mean, we've asked year and year to shave what we can, and done an amazing job. And now we're at shaving people. And I don't want to shave people. I don't want to rob our reserves forever. I mean, we've got a decision to make here. And I mean, we can't, I mean, there's like really three options on the table as far as I'm concerned. We can run the reserves down. We can look at some sort of tax increase, or we can shave our soft services, which means job cuts. Those are really those three big options that we have here. And I mean, what can we shave elsewhere in the budget? I mean, we just kind of went through it all and we deferred one thing for a couple of years. There's not much left.
Thank you, Councillor Meyer. Councillor Fossen.
Thank you, Councillor Waymire. In no way am I saying that we should cut jobs in our community. But I think here's just one example that I'm just going to use because as a resident and having residents come to me, talk to me, and maybe our operations officer can clarify for me, how many running truck vehicles do we have in our community right now for our staff to drive to the job site? Is he online still?
Yes, if I may.
Operations Doxy.
I don't have an accurate count in front of me. I know we have a couple trucks that are down. But I could come up with a list for council as part of that capital replacement plan.
Okay, thank you. There was a reason why I asked that question. Oftentimes I will see one village employee in one village truck with another village employee in another village truck within 5 minutes going to the same place. Our community members see that too. So if we're having trucks break down, it only makes sense that if we can't afford to buy another one, we put 2 employees in the same truck going to the same site. That's common sense. Then we would save maybe $188,000 next year. That makes up for the 125,000. I'm going back to our 5-year projected summary. Public Works Vehicle Replacement 31001, 2025, 130,000. 2026, 188,000. I see money right there we can shave without anybody losing a job, and we're being more efficient with what we have. That's my point I'm making. I'm not saying shut down the pool, stop making sewer main repairs, fire staff. I'm not saying that. There are ways that we can come up with when we look at our budget to recoup some of this cost. But I'm done talking about it, so thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Fossen. Councillor Pickard.
Thank you through the chair. Thanks everyone for your thoughts. And I know we're all just trying to think outside the box and see what is prioritized or not. But one idea, and then I don't think we've really looked at this that much. The pool always comes up and it's such a big asset, but we don't have the resident and tax base to cover operating costs. So it's always underfunded, right? And we're just kind of going into deficit every year funding it. But I think one important thing that we could look at is possibly some kind of partnership with our local First Nation that uses the pool for recreation, that uses the pool for lessons. We share it, but the village has like the onus of all the operating costs, which we have a small population. So I know we just did our first meeting not long ago, and it was mentioned there that we had some relationship building to do, and the intro wasn't the time and to bring up any shared costs, but we see the reserves, the charts are all trending downwards, some more aggressively than others for the money. And maybe they haven't been involved in support for our recreation facilities in the past, but things are looking more and more bleak and more moving towards possible closure. So maybe, you know, having them involved and having them part of it, like there's examples like in the District of Kent in BC, and they had it's a new build, so they received over 450,000 in federal funding and 9.5 million in provincial funding to build a pool in partnership with their local First Nation. And if, you know, the money that's going in towards reconciliation and First Nation, like relationship building is been increasing drastically. So maybe it's our responsibility to kind of meet with them and share how important this asset and this resource is for our town, for all of our kids to learn to grow and swim. So when it closes in May, they can swim and be safe outside. And maybe it's just one idea of maybe funding is easier for them to partner with the municipal council and keep a recreation center open and operating and bring those health and social benefits to the population. So just an idea there.
Thank you,
Thank
Councilor Pickard. Any other discussion? I really enjoy listening to discussion. It helps me, and the reason it helps me is because I'm undecided. Tonight, I can't make a decision one way or the other. I don't know whether the best route going forward for the village of Gold River is to sensitize the village and provide options for stimulus for business growth and development and support our businesses and make sure they feel important and validated and respected and not arbitrarily getting taxed these wild tax fluctuations that we come up with to try and make this financial budget work. And at the same time, I'm not sure if we can tax our way out of this. I really don't. And then the other thing is that when I look at it, I wanted to see whether or not there was another route. And like I said during our last meeting, is that we challenged our administration to do something extraordinary. We said, can you find a lot of savings for us? Not a little savings, impactful savings, significant savings. On our budget, they cut $536,000 from last year to this year. $536,000. Try cutting that from your budget. See how that hits your family. You have to make some pretty big decisions. Our staff has done that for us. They did it. Nobody's lost their job. Nobody's been fired. None of our services have been reduced. And our budget bottom line looked better than it has in the first 2 years that we've been here. So at this point, I'm challenged because I looked at it and I think there's a solution to just eat it like we did in the first year and say we'll take it out of our reserves and we've got the money that we can finance that, and we just say that that's our incentive to business. We're not going to increase our taxes to those areas by the 35% we talked about last year, which turned out, which would have given us the recovery of $125,000. But it wouldn't hit the specific businesses that we had an issue with, it would hit everybody in those classifications. We decided that that wasn't the route we were going to go. We voted against that, and that's not the way we want to do it. We didn't think we were going to tax our way out of it. We decided that we would draw our general reserves and trust our staff to find efficiencies and effectivenesses in their operations that would save money. If you look at it, I think we had a $500,000 deficit budgeted for this year. Talking to the administrator and hearing a discussion from the last meeting, that 5.7 million that we've identified as revenue for this year, we're going to meet that. And then if we look at the 6.2 that we budgeted expenditures, we're at 3.3 million right now. We budgeted a $500,000 deficit. We're going to have surplus. How significant that surplus is, I don't know. We had a surplus we talked about last year when we were going to have a deficit also. We ended up with, I even actually pulled the report. Do you remember what the numbers were on that, Councilor Renner? For the end of the year for 2023, do you remember that? See if I can find that. You guys will be patient with me. Fourth quarter financial report. I won't go into all the numbers because there's a lot of numbers there, but essentially what happened is that we budgeted a certain number for our revenue for the year. We exceeded that by 147,000. and $21. This is the December 31, 2023 report. This is our fourth quarter financial report that our administrator provided us with. And we also underspent by, this is $650,920. And we transferred an item, the warehouse, that was about a $500,000 job, into the operating budget out of the tangible capital assets. That's not reflected really there too. So I guess one of the things that I'm looking at is that budgets are somebody's educated best guess. Essentially, that's what it is, an educated best guess. And most budgets that are prepared by professionals are done very conservatively. They recognize that there could be a worst case scenario on our revenues and a worst case scenario on expenditures. And it's usually reflected in the document because you don't want to have any surprises. And that's usually why we see deficits projected and then we ended up with surpluses, because the financial community is very conservative in doing their budgeting. And I understand why. I wouldn't want to do it the other way, because if we promised that we'd have a huge amount of revenues and a limited amount of expenditures, and you came in and every single year there was a deficit when they were promising a surplus of hundreds and hundreds of thousands of dollars, that's not good for the folks in their profession, right? So from my perspective right now, I'm undecided because I don't know whether or not the solution to Gold River going forward is to try and tax ourselves out of this. We're already asking for 8.9% from our residents. What does 8.9% translate into? If we look at the general and the water and sewer, that's about $150,000, $160,000. $150,000, $160,000 we're taking out of our residents and our businesses and our institutions' pockets and putting it into our coffers to pay for our operations. $160,000 last year, $160,000 this year, $160,000 next year. Our legacy will be, add that all up, and probably $120,000 for the first year because we went down to 5.8, 8.9. I think we did it on general, not on the water sewer, but I think we still kept 8.9 in water sewer. But anyways, what's that work out to? That's about $600,000 that we've asked for the residents during our term. Every single year, we projected a deficit. Every single year, we had a surplus. This document is somebody's best guess of what it's going to look like at this time next year. I guarantee you, the numbers that you see on this page are not the numbers you're going to see in November, December 2025. I guarantee it. Stake my life on it. Stake the reputation and life of the community on it. That's why for the first couple of years, even though I was hell-bent on getting a balanced budget, I was satisfied that we got it to a $300,000, $400,000, $500,000 deficit would be fine, because I knew that it would still end up in a surplus, because I had trust in my employees, trust in my management, trust in the community that we could find efficiencies, effectiveness, and way of doing business differently, that we could still provide all our service that we wanted to our community. Not lay off or fire any of employees. Not significantly raise our tax like 34, 35% we talked about for business. Light industry. So I'm not sold that we need to raise taxes in more than 8.9%. I think taxes are way higher than they need to be based on what I'm seeing. Inflation's going down next year. Interest rates are going down. All my colleagues I talk to in our surrounding communities in Mid and North Island are charging going to be 3, 4, maybe 5 at most for their budgets. And I'm really worried about the message that we send to our business community if we're going to jack up the price of our taxes when we just want to focus on a couple of businesses that we have a grievance with. Because there's a lot of, we don't have a laser guided solution here. All we can do is go into general tax classifications, raise those up, and there's a lot of collateral damage. People have done nothing to have their taxes jacked up that amounts. So I can't make a decision tonight because I'm still torn. Do we try and incentivize our way out of this by providing a better business climate, by saying to our business community, listen, we cut back $526,000 in our budget. That would translate into that number you talked about, Mr. Counselor Fossin. That means 50% increase on everybody to meet that number. If we didn't cut that, we're looking at 50% increase across the board for everybody to make that number up. You laugh, but that's the reality. So that's what's been done for us. That's the gift that we've got from our staff who bust their butt in order to try and get that number for us in our community, our taxpayers. I'm very appreciative of that. Makes our job a lot easier. Yeah, so I don't know. I don't want to send that message to the business community. I really don't, because I think that in the last couple of years of our term, I want to be providing incentive to those folks, tell them that they're appreciated, they're respected, we need them. There's no way Gold River is going forward without them. The solution to Gold River's recovery is not coming out of this chamber, it's coming out of the private sector. Gold River exists because of what's happening down at the West Coast Marine Terminals. That's why Gold River was built. We need something down there to replace what we lost. I don't know if we're going to help ourselves by sending the message that, you know, you're working in a climate that's completely volatile, where our council can come up with 30, 40, 50% tax increases every year on your business. We might lose them. And people laugh at me, say, you're not going to lose any business. I said, what about Christina Long? We had a promising young business down there. She's gone now. Too many things against her, and she's Gold River Seaforest is gone. What about Grieg Seafood? How long are they going to last? They should have been shut down last year or this year, 2004. You know, if the federal government went through with what they wanted to go with, and how many other people does that affect in our community? Not just the people that work there, 65, but we've read the director's report saying all the other people that are supported by that industry in our community, plus all of the other, you know, businesses that are tertiary business that are supported. What happens if they go down? What kind of message does this send them? I know they're lessees, but we increase the tax on West Coast Marine Terminals. Guess who's paying it? Not West Coast Marine Terminals. They're going to pass it on to their lessees, right? So I don't know. Do we tax our way out of this thing? I don't think so. Do we want to create a short-term solution where we get the money from the businesses, but we maybe alienate businesses or have them leave or shut down or whatever? I don't know if that's a solution. Is that going to create the incentive that we need to get businesses to come and locate in Gold River, invest their money here, build their businesses here, get their employees here, build their lives here, get the taxes we need? Is that the route we go? We take a short-term hit there, and because we want to make it more attractive for our businesses, and then we get businesses coming in, and we live that drives the recovery. I just don't know. And, you know, I know I got enough money in the bank. There's like a couple $1 million sitting there and unreserved, and we got another 3 million sitting in a, reserve that's unrestricted. So there's money there, 125 over the next 2 years. It's not going to make a difference. What's going to make a difference is, I think, is that what happens down the mill site. I believe that business is going to drive the recovery of Gold River. I don't believe that, and I believe that we create an environment that attracts investment. We get businesses established down there. We get jobs created down there. We get products and service created. We get taxes. We get people moving into the community, rejuvenate a use of our recreation facilities, our education facilities. But I think that's the recovery model for Gold River. I don't think we can tax our way out of this and into prosperity. I really don't. And I'm really worried about, if we go down that route, what message we're sending to that community. Plus, I don't know, even as a business owner, like I've talked to people that are just residents, and they're telling me that 8.9% translates into in their tax bill. They're not even business owners. These are just like folks struggling to get by, right? And they're getting hit with 8.9, 8.9, 8.9. It's like, that's 600, that's 700. That's it on my tax bill. I can't afford it. I'm struggling to get by. People that are just residents here, what about our retirees? What are we got? 65% of our population's retirees or so. They're fixed incomes, they don't get a 8.9% increase in their whatever their pension is every year. So I don't like any of the solutions, to be quite honest. I'm not happy with raising taxes any more than we've raised them. I don't want to ask these folks to try and cut in their 25,000. I think it's an insult to them. They just gave us $536,000 in savings. I didn't work with them I didn't do any of it. They did it all themselves. I didn't tell them you had to take this out, that out, the other thing. They did it and they gave that to us. I don't want to insult these people either. They've done a marvelous job for us. 536,000, 50% increase in your taxes support. That's what they gave us so far to work with. I'm not going to insult these people. And the other thing is that 125,000 for 1 or 2 years, if we can make it through those couple of years and see if something happens down, and talk to Mr. Filizetti, Mr. Carlton, Kent O'Neill down there, say, what's happening with you guys? What can you do? We talked to the folks at Greek Seafood. I know they're struggling because they've got some challenges federally, regulatory and politically. Just had a meeting with the folks down there at Nooka Marine Services and folks at Nooka. You know, they need a positive message from the community right now. So I don't know, you guys, I'm struggling. I couldn't even vote on anything tonight, to be quite honest, because I know, I hope not. I hope nobody makes a motion tonight because I think I had to make the deciding vote last time, and I don't want to make the deciding vote tonight because I'm not sure exactly where I am right now, but I know I'm not happy with any of the options that are being presented now. I don't want to raise taxes. I don't want to raise taxes on businesses and one top shop like this. I don't want to draw down reserves. I don't want to cut services anymore. I don't want to do any of it, to be quite honest. Like I say to my administrator, who knows a little bit about my history, I know a little bit about his. I said, I wish I was in Fort St. John, where the only thing we had to worry about is what we do with all the surpluses, where we put them. But here, we're struggling. Every day, it's a day of survivor. And we're struggling to survive. And it gets to be, wears you down after a while. I want to find the best answer for this community going forward. And I don't have it right now. I'm not convinced right now. If I'm going to be the swing vote, it sounds like I'm going to be the deciding vote anyways, because it looks like about a 2-2 from where I'm sitting. I don't want to do anything but receive this for information and do some more work on it and think about it a bit more. Talk to a few more people, talk to my staff. Because I'm not at a point where I feel comfortable making one decision or the other. And I also want to share with council my deep respect for your folks' opinions. Like everything that you guys have said resonates with me. I understand where you're coming from, and they're very valid arguments. And when I hear them, I think, boy, are the folks at Gold River, they made a good decision, you know, voting for you guys and getting you in here, because you're people of heart and you're people of substance and passion. You want to do the best that you can for Gold River. And I'm really grateful for, you know, having your counsel and hearing from you folks. But after the discussion tonight, to be quite honest, I'm not quite sure what the best direction is going forth, because I don't feel it. You know what I mean? I just don't have that conviction. Most of the time, you guys dealt with me for 2 years. You probably think most of the time he's pretty obnoxious. You know, he doesn't listen. He just does what he's decide he's going to do. He doesn't listen to people or whatever. But so I'm not that kind of person. I usually am pretty out there with leading with them with my voice, but I don't know where the best way to go right now, to be quite honest. I know it's a vulnerable sort of thing, but I don't know what the best decision is for Gold River tonight. So yeah, I appreciate hearing everybody's comments. They're going to give me some more food for reflection, but I don't know if I've got the best decision going forward quite yet. So anyways, I'm not prepared to make any motion. I hope you guys don't want to make any motions on this tonight. Because I don't know where I'm not quite sure where I feel, where I am right yet. Councillor Pringle.
To the chair, thank you for your kind words for the rest of your council. I also think the same of everyone. I appreciate everybody's opinion, and that's why I like the way we go around and everybody has something different to say, makes me think. But for right now, we don't have to vote tonight. We still have some more months and some more days to think about it. And I would like to make a motion that we adjourn and that we come back to this another day, because my brain is kind of like
I feel the
I'm
same.
calling her right now,
So
and I
if there's no other
appreciate everybody
discussion-
working so hard tonight.
I didn't mean to cut you off. My apologies. But I share your sentiments. I'm done. I'm gonna go watch hockey game. So why don't we call for the question on this? No other discussion. Call for the question on receipts. Oh, do you want some more discussion?
Yeah, just a little.
Councilor
Thank you. Almost.
I sucked
Thank
up a
you.
lot in the air there.
No, it was great. Thank you through the chair, and thank you, Mayor Lot, for sharing your thoughts, all of them, and your sentiments. And we still have lots of sleeps before we have to make decisions. And I think we're all the options suck, and we're all trying to think of the least sucky for everybody and the best for short term, but also the best for long term. And everybody has a different perspective on what that is. So we appreciate everyone's thoughts on that. And unfortunately, it's not Fort St. John and we have too much surplus to allocate. But, you know, there's lots of different options and everyone's ideas are great. And just one thing to clarify for residents or our resident in here. that all the money that we make for property taxes, we can't really add it up and say the municipality is keeping all that for operating expenses. I think maybe the chair can confirm, but about half the village will keep for municipality because we have to do the school tax, police tax, regional district tax, regional hospital district tax. So,
All of the things that are in the physical budget.
oh yeah,
We just collect
so,
money for other people.
yeah, we don't keep it all. We keep about half, but anyway, I think it is really important to look at the increases and that they just keep increasing, you
We
know,
collect
over
the money for
time.
them and send it to them.
Yeah, so anyway, thank you.
Is that Councilor Pickard? Okay. Any other discussion? Here, we've got a motion already for receipt. I just don't want to cut anybody off. It's a pretty important conversation. I think it probably represents it'll reverberate in time for decades and decades of decision that we make here, to be quite honest. So it's worth exhausting ourselves, you know, to make sure that all those points of views are out there. Because at the end, we got to make the best public policy decision for this community going forward. And yeah, so let's make sure we're in a position that we can do that. So anyways, with that said, call for the question, all in favor, receipt? We received it, done. Okay, let's do the rest of it. Report from council, and yet information items, no reports, committees, no bylaws, correspondence, no question period. Administrator Roy, do we have any question period from the galleries? Did you want to have any questions, sir? If you want to ask a question, sir, you just have to come up to this here, introduce yourself, and then address your question to the council.
Hi,
Thanks for sitting through all that.
it's Tim Taylor. I'm just a liver that live here. But listening to, I've sat on a lot of boards.
Excellent.
With buildings and stuff like that. I'm a contractor for plumbing for 40 years.
Yes, sir.
And I've talked to several people that if there was any information or any that I could help in to do with mechanical stuff
Right.
without having somebody to come down that are companies that are there to make money.
Mhm.
And as I said, I've sat on several big buildings and I've always stopped people from spending money and watching where they spend their money too, because a lot of companies come in there and say, well, you gotta fix it, you gotta fix it. And there's a lot of things that you don't have to fix. Wait until it's all ready to replace it, instead of going in and going, fix this, and every 2 weeks or every month, you're gonna fix something else.
Yes, sir.
You know what I mean? So it's just.
Yeah, we look for efficiencies affecting us all the time.
Right, so I just offer that information, or if the town ever do that, because I don't want to lose my town.
Yes.
I don't want to move. I'm
Neither
very
do I.
happy to be here. And
So am I.
I think it has a lot to offer here. you
It
know,
sure does.
And like, I'd love to see something to where they're fishing here, because this is the only other deep water
Yes, sir.
on the west coast
Mhm.
that any boat can come in here.
Yep.
It has lots to offer,
Sure does.
you know what I mean? And like even now in Nanaimo, all the Mercedes come to here to go across Canada now.
Yes.
which is amazing that they do that.
Mhm.
But where something like that, it has something to offer here.
Yeah.
You know, or to having more homes here because just of the cost. You know, our costs in Campbell River are doubled.
Yeah.
Their taxes is doubled.
Yeah.
As well as their housing. You're paying $400,000 for just the land,
Yes.
you know? So I would think that people would say has a lot to offer here. We have healthcare, we have a lot here. If there was some way we could make people like buses, you know, I lived in Banff and Canmore for 40 years.
Mhm.
And that's how people get around where they're going now, is by buses that are limited to what they make. But the healthcare is helping them with those buses so people can prevent people to work there. And because not, people as a job here has something to offer. You know, no matter what they're educated on or whatever, we need people like that.
Agreed.
So
So you're in question period right now. So do you have a specific question that I appreciate all your comments and thank you for sharing them with me. If
Yeah.
you have a specific question you want to address, then perhaps we can answer your question.
not really. It was just, I'm listening to what you have to say and I could see it's very difficult. I just wanted to really make that offer.
I always love having my bosses come into this chamber and observe their people's business being done. So thank you for coming and thank
Okay.
you for your comments. And yeah, hopefully we see you in the future and
Well, I'll come in here.
we might be able to put you to work someplace, sir.
Be great, but I don't want to leave.
Neither do I.
Thank you.
Take care. Good evening. New business, none. Motion to adjourn, no prize. Who wants to make the motion that we adjourn this meeting? Counselor Pringle, you're done. And Fawcett. Any discussion? No. Call for question, all in favor? We're done. Thank you, everybody. Terrific.